In February of 2015, a journalist at a German newspaper received an encrypted message from someone who called themselves John Doe. The message was simple. John Doe had documents, a great many documents, and they proved something that the world's wealthiest and most powerful people had spent decades trying to hide. Over the following months, John Doe delivered the files. When the transfer was complete, the journalists had received 11.5 million documents, 2.6 terabytes of data from a single law firm in Panama. The files named 12 sitting or former heads of state, 128 other politicians and public officials, hundreds of celebrities, athletes, and business leaders from over 200 countries. And at the center of it all was a question so simple it almost sounds naive. Where does the money of the ultra-wealthy actually go? The answer, as the Panama Papers revealed, is not in the countries where it was earned, not in the countries where taxes were owed, not anywhere that regulators, governments, or ordinary citizens could see it. It goes offshore, into shell companies with no employees, no offices, and no publicly listed owners, into a parallel financial system built specifically for those who can afford to disappear their wealth from the world. To understand the Panama Papers, you first need to understand what a shell company is. A shell company is a legal entity, a company that exists on paper but has no actual business activity, no employees, no products, no services. It is simply a legal structure registered in a jurisdiction that asks very few questions, charges very low taxes, and keeps the names of its owners secret. Shell companies are not inherently illegal. They have legitimate uses, holding assets, managing intellectual property, facilitating international transactions. But they are also, as the Panama Papers demonstrated with extraordinary detail, the primary tool of tax evasion, money laundering, sanctions evasion, and the hiding of criminal proceeds at a global scale. Mossack Fonseca was founded in 1977 by two men, Jürgen Mossack, a German-born lawyer whose father had been a member of the Waffen-SS, and Ramon Fonseca, a Panamanian lawyer and novelist. By the time the Panama Papers were published, their firm had offices in 35 countries and had created over 214,000 offshore entities for clients around the world. The firm operated as a factory of secrecy. A client would contact Mossack Fonseca, usually through a bank or intermediary, and request the incorporation of a company in a tax haven, the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, Seychelles, Panama itself. The firm would create the company, provide nominee directors whose names would appear on the paperwork, and arrange for the true owner's name to appear nowhere in any public document. In an internal document later exposed in the leak, a Mossack Fonseca employee noted that 95% of the firm's work consisted in selling vehicles to avoid taxes. 95%. The firm's clients included drug traffickers, arms dealers, sanctioned governments, oligarchs, dictators, and most significantly for the political impact of the eventual leak, the friends, relatives, and associates of some of the most powerful political figures in the world. When the journalist Bastian Obermeier of Süddeutsche Zeitung received the first encrypted message from John Doe, the source was explicit. The documents could not be published immediately. The data set was too large. The subjects were too powerful. The legal risks were too significant. and the story was too important to get wrong. Obermeyer and his colleague Frederick Obermeyer contacted the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the ICIJ, a Washington-based network of investigative reporters. The ICIJ then shared the material with 107 media organizations in 80 countries, including The Guardian, Le Monde, the BBC, La Nación, and dozens of others. What followed was the largest coordinated journalistic collaboration in history. 370 journalists working in different languages, different time zones, different legal jurisdictions spent more than a year analyzing the documents. They built a shared encrypted database. They communicated through secure channels, and they agreed on a single rule. No one publishes until everyone publishes. For over a year, 370 journalists knew one of the biggest stories in history and said nothing. Not a single leak, not a single hint, not a single tip to a competitor. The coordination required was extraordinary. Journalists who had spent careers competing against each other had to trust each other completely. Stories were written, translated, and legally reviewed simultaneously across dozens of countries. Publication dates were synchronized to the minute. On April 3rd, 2016, at exactly the same moment, across 80 countries, the stories went live. The reaction was immediate and global. In Iceland, Prime Minister Sigmundur Gunnlaugsson was named in the documents. He had owned a secret offshore company called Wintris Incorporated with his wife and had not disclosed it when he entered Parliament. The company held claims against the Icelandic banks that had collapsed in 2008, the very banks Gunnlaugsson had promised to be tough on as Prime Minister. He resigned within 48 hours of publication, the first head of government to fall. In Pakistan, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's children were named as owners of offshore companies holding luxury apartments in London. The Supreme Court of Pakistan launched an investigation. In 2017, Sharif was disqualified from office. In 2018, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for corruption. In Russia, the documents revealed a network of shell companies connected to Sergei Roldugin, a close personal friend of Vladimir Putin and a professional cellist. Roldugin, with no obvious source of great wealth, appeared to control assets worth approximately $2 billion. Putin dismissed the allegations as a coordinated information attack by the West. Police in Panama and Switzerland raided Mossack Fonseca's offices. The founders, Mossack and Fonseca, were arrested in February 2017. The firm announced it would cease operations in March 2018. In June 2024, a judge in Panama acquitted all former Mossack Fonseca employees, including both founders, due to insufficient evidence and problems with the chain of custody of the leaked documents. Both men walked free. The acquittal was a blow to those who had hoped the Panama Papers would produce criminal accountability, and it illustrated something the investigation had always implied, but never quite stated. Most of what Mossack Fonseca did was legal. Offshore shell companies are legal. Nominee directors are legal. Holding assets in tax havens is legal. The system that the Panama Papers exposed was not a criminal conspiracy operating in the shadows. It was an industry, a legitimate, well-regulated, globally integrated industry whose explicit purpose was to allow the wealthy to operate beyond the reach of the tax systems and disclosure requirements that apply to everyone else. The political consequences were real. More than 40 countries launched investigations. The United Kingdom recovered over $500 million in additional taxes and fines. New Zealand changed its laws. Dozens of politicians resigned or were removed from office. Interpol issued red notices. The OECD expanded its common reporting standard to push for greater financial transparency between jurisdictions. But the system itself, the offshore industry, the shell company mechanism, the network of tax havens remains largely intact. Mossack Fonseca is closed. Its competitors are not. The ICIJ estimates that Mossack Fonseca represented at most 10% of the global offshore corporate services industry. John Doe, the anonymous source who started everything, gave his first media interview in 2022. He told the German magazine Der Spiegel that he still lives with fear for his safety, that the Russian government has, in his words, expressed the fact that it wants him dead, that he never expected one law firm's data to solve global corruption, and that politicians still have not acted with the urgency that the moment demanded. The Panama Papers revealed something that most people suspected but could not prove, that the global financial system has two layers. The first layer is the one most of us live in: wages taxed at source, savings in accounts that governments can see, assets declared, reported, and subject to the laws of the country where you actually live. The second layer is invisible. It runs parallel to the first. It serves only those with enough wealth, enough lawyers, and enough distance from ordinary accountability to access it. Money moves through it freely between jurisdictions, between entities, between names, leaving no trace visible to any single government, any single regulator, any single investigator. John Doe named this system. 370 journalists documented it. And the world responded with investigations, resignations, reforms,